Well, first of all, thanks everybody for joining. We appreciate your time. I'm hoping we can really add a lot of value in your day today. To start off, we will do some introductions. I'm the practice director for Accudata Systems. Now we're recently been acquired by an amazing company called Converge. I'll go into more detail in a little bit. My areas of focus specifically for today will be data center. However, I do have cloud as well as collaboration. So let me introduce you to Christian. Christian, you want to introduce yourself?
Yep. Hi, everyone. My name is Christian Watson. I'm a partner solutions engineer from Citrix. I come from the Citrix consulting organization before that, and so I work with partners as well as customers on configuring the latest and greatest Citrix technologies.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Christian. We'll start off with talk a little bit about Accudata. We're a 39-year-old company, been around in Houston for some time now, probably one of the oldest consulting firms in Texas. So we've probably dealt with every customer in Texas if you think about it. So it's been a good experience. Start off with it's very important for us to ensure you get good accolades because you got to have happy people and a business that's successful. You got to have the accolades in the market to do so. Some of the big accolades for us, of course, obviously are Net Promoter Score. It's 84, which in the industry average is around 65, 70. So we're definitely above the norm. The other big thing I want to point out is our retention rate. That's very important because customers won't hang around if you're not doing a great job, right? So definitely a great retention rate for this market and for this current period. The other thing we heavily believe in is our happy employees because a happy employees provide happy customers. So we have a big focus around Accudata culture and Accudata employee morale, right? So if you notice, Glassdoor ratings are really high. We win best places to work both in Houston and Dallas. So it's a really exciting time for us right now, especially with the new merger we just recently went into. Talking about that, about a couple of months ago, we announced that Converge has merged with Accudata. We are now a Converge company. Saying that, it brings us a lot more value we can bring to our customers. Everything from advanced analytics to deeper like DevOps and deeper solutions that you might not necessarily see Accudata do in the past. And the best of breed is actually what we're bringing, right? So for anything from using Snowflake as well as Tableau for business analytics to, helping you with like your AS400 issues, etc. As always, we've been a pretty strong cloud partner, so we continue doing that for you. We're happy to help you. The good news is we are bringing in IBM and Google Cloud, something we haven't historically done, but we have great our partners, our sister companies in the north really help us with that space. As always, one of your top security companies in Texas, so feel free to reach out to us for that. And Mark Holsworth will be upset if I don't call him out for managed services, right? We're happy to help you in that space as well. And today we're going to talk a lot about digital infrastructure, specifically Citrix. And I'm going to actually pass it off to Christian to go into more detail around it.
So as you can see, the topic for today is specifically going to be around Citrix Secure Internet Access. This is actually a new product that Citrix has introduced very recently in the last 2 months. And it's something that we're excited to talk about today because I think it's top of mind for many of our customers and it's checking a lot of boxes that were previously difficult to obtain and difficult to check for many of our other competitors in the industry. So without further ado, I'll go ahead and dive into it. We do have a question functionality in WebEx, so if you do have questions, feel free to post them there, and I'll definitely get to those as we go throughout the presentation. But to kick us off with kind of where the idea for the product came from and kind of the key things to keep in mind during development and integration of this product with our existing Citrix security stack is around the move of many organizations to SaaS and cloud-hosted applications for much of their either users' data or the activities that users need to do throughout a given workday. And so building on Citrix's traditional messaging of any, we also understand that workers are very mobile, whether that's between devices or between physical locations throughout the world in which they work, as well as the fact that the traditional VPN architectures that we've seen over the last year kind of failed to scale adequately for many of our customers have been replaced by cloud-hosted solutions that are centrally managed and easy to scale because of that cloud-hosted infrastructure. And then the last piece around the security threats that are constantly evolving and changing. The list of zero-day vulnerabilities, I'm sure many of you have seen the headlines even just this year around the latest security concerns. And so there's a constant need to stay on top of that, being proactive instead of reactive. And so we can kind of talk through a little bit later on the details of how the Secure Internet Access product is doing that for you and your organization. So at a really high level, if we want to break down the value of the solution before we get into any technical details, here's really kind of the summary key points. We want to block threats from the internet. The idea that there are malicious actors, malicious sites, sources of bad data and bad code that can be knowingly or unknowingly installed on end user devices and then potentially make its way into a corporate network. So the idea is that we need to have a security solution in place to prevent that, as well as providing security controls for those SaaS and web applications that are critical to business today. Building on our any messaging, this is kind of the continuation of that into the security space with all users in all locations. So whether they're a mobile user, a branch user, or a mobile, mobile in the sense that they're on a mobile device, or mobile in the sense that they constantly move around the globe to do their work, they're able to get adequate application performance without compromising that security enforcement of their applications. This is far beyond just application protection. This also has applications for virtual desktops, native desktops, and other use cases of the like. One that we'll talk about a little bit later on today is actually Internet of Things devices as well, and how that fits into the secure internet access picture, but I'll get to that a little later. One of the key benefits of cloud-hosted security solutions is the scalability of the solution, the idea that it's centrally managed and based on resources that aren't necessarily in a physical data center that's being managed by the end customer, makes it easy for the organization to scale with increased demand, increased traffic load, or new locations that may come as a result of a merger or acquisition. If we look at what's important to the IT teams that are going to be managing the solution, I think checking the boxes on agility is one of the key components here. You'll see unified provisioning, holistic visibility, and auto scalability for faster troubleshooting available in the solution, and the idea that you're able to empower those remote workers instead of restrict those remote workers not only cuts down the number of tickets you're receiving, but also overall it improves the employee experience as they're accessing those apps for daily use. One of the keys and kind of the consolidation benefits of putting everything on a centrally managed cloud-hosted solution is having consistent policy enforcement everywhere. While you may not want to have the same policies apply to every user within your organization, you can have the ability to have a centrally managed console to delegate out, choose how the rules are applied, constantly make changes, everything you need from a one-stop shop in the cloud. So this is great for those disparate use cases where maybe one user group is in the office every day and another user group is constantly traveling. You can be sure and rest assured that your security controls and policies are being applied to those users adequately. Let's talk a little bit about where the product fits in the overall market. One of the key terms to know for this space is SASE, Secure Access Service Edge, which was identified by Gartner in late 2019 as the convergence of the traditional networking products like SD-WAN and firewall capabilities, alongside the security services like Secure Web Gateway, CASB, and Zero Trust Network Access. So you can kind of see the graphic of the convergence there, and we'll talk through in a little bit more detail the core and recommended capabilities for Gartner. I won't go into each of these, as I'm sure many of you are already familiar with a lot of these terms. But the key to point out here is that for both the core and recommended SASE capabilities, Citrix is checking all of the boxes with our solution stack. So whether that's the SD-WAN capabilities that Citrix has had for several years, building on our secure web gateway capabilities, but also including the web app and API protection service, remote browser isolation and sandboxing, and some of the other more difficult to obtain and demonstrate recommended capabilities that our competitors are not able to offer today. So let's look at the stack of the solution for Citrix Security. You can see some familiar names here with SD-WAN, Secure Workspace Access, and Analytics. We're specifically talking about analytics for security here, so if you're familiar with our analytics offerings, we can go into those if there's any questions around that. But really the highlight of today's presentation is at the top with Secure Internet Access, and you can see some of the individual components. We'll go through those in a little bit more detail later on. But for right now, this is kind of the solution stack around security, so you can see that no matter the end user, the device, or the location, or the application on the right-hand side, end users are able to have a secure experience based on this stack. So I think a question that a lot of customers have at this point is, where does secure internet access fit in with maybe my existing Citrix solution? Or if I'm a new customer, where can I start with Citrix solutions? And so kind of to answer both of those questions in one slide, you can look at the Citrix Cloud Unified Management Console as the central solution that's the backbone of all of these products. And so whether that's the Citrix Workspace delivering secure virtual apps and desktops, which Citrix is widely known for, or the Citrix SD-WAN orchestrator capabilities for centralized management of SD-WAN devices at branch or home office locations, as well as the integrations with secure workspace access for things like single sign-on and security controls around SaaS and web applications, as well as the secure internet access solution that we're discussing today. So the nice thing is, if you already have a Citrix Cloud entitlement, you already have a user account and login to the Citrix Cloud, Secure Internet Access is just an additional feature and functionality that can be turned on in your account. So there's no new setup, there's no new portal to get used to. It's all integrated into the same portal that you're already using. This is true for Workspace, Secure Workspace Access, as well as the SD-WAN solutions. So a lot of tie-in, a lot of integrations there. And even though this is a new product, the interface fits together nicely. So I think the next question that comes up at that point is, where does secure workspace access end and where does secure internet access begin? So if you look at our high-level diagram here, don't get too concerned about the specific example applications that we've selected here, as Steam and Minecraft aren't usually the ones that enterprise organizations are talking about. But basically the idea here is that for the internal applications, you can think of these as sanctioned applications or managed applications by your internal IT team. Maybe they're hosted in a corporate data center or a private cloud location. These applications are things that would traditionally be delivered over the ICA protocol or the HDX protocol, giving the best application performance and also the granular security controls that many organizations need for their virtual apps. Where secure internet access comes into the picture is for those SaaS and web applications that aren't necessarily hosted in a IT managed data center. So those public applications that are hosted in a SaaS fashion that aren't able to receive the benefits of the ICA protocol or HDX protocol aren't necessarily able to traditionally receive those same level of security controls, as they're a little bit more cloud managed and hands off from an IT perspective. And so secure internet access gives you that same level of granular control and security enforcement over those SaaS applications that would traditionally be left less managed or less secured in a traditional deployment. So before we dive into the specific details of what's included with secure internet access, at a high level, the key value positioning is that it's protection for all of your global users. We have a wide distribution of points of presence or access points for the service. I'll show a map kind of highlighting that later on. But the key here is that if it's a mobile workforce or users that are based in an office location or working from home because of the current situation, you're able to get great application performance because of close proximity to those points of presence, but also deliver the security enforcement that you need. All entitlements, all versions, all functions and additions of secure internet access include the full SSL inspection capabilities. This is something that many of our competitors are electing to sell as their premium feature or an upgrade feature to their existing solutions. But Citrix has deemed this as fundamental to the value of the product. So whether it's the standard, advanced, or premium tier, you are getting full SSL inspection capability at every tier of the product. And finally, being that it is cloud hosted and centrally managed, we're actually consolidating threat intelligence indicators from more than 10 different existing vendors that are playing in the space. Citrix is obviously not the first to enter the security space, and so we want to leverage the existing investment from other vendors that have compiled and started consolidating their list of indicators of compromise into our Citrix cloud hosted environment. This keeps us up to date on the latest real-time indicators of zero-day compromises, sources of malware, malicious websites, and things of that nature, without having to start from scratch and build the solution from the ground up. So let's dive into the individual components within Secure Internet Access, and this slide actually also accomplishes a little bit on the licensing front. If you look at the top row here, so Secure Web Gateway, Firewall, and CASB or Cloud Access Security Broker, those three are included at the standard tier of the product. And so at the base level, you're getting those components, and we'll talk through where malware protection and data loss prevention come in later on. But for the Secure Web Gateway, this is your traditional SWG capabilities around blocking certain types of websites by content groups, blocking by domains, or blocking certain social media applications because they fall into that category. You, of course, have granular control over what fits and does not fit into each of these categories, but we do provide several examples and pre-configured groupings by default with the solution. For the firewall capabilities, again, this is probably exactly what you're expecting, being able to block based on source IP, physical location, geo-blocking for entire regions, things of that nature. On the CASB front, this is where I think it starts getting more interesting, where we see the granular controls around read-only capabilities in certain social media applications. One example would be the use case for maybe a recruiting role within your organization. They probably need access to view and read through certain capabilities that are available on LinkedIn, but don't necessarily need the ability to post or share anything to LinkedIn. And so in that case, you can give them the control and the ability to access LinkedIn and most of its capabilities, but the second that they try and post something or share something on those sites, maybe potentially doing something that's not as productive for them during the workday, you can granularly control what they have access to and aren't able to do on those sites. So it's pretty cool there, as well as things like Google Drive corporate access only. So the idea that if at any given point a user tries to exfiltrate data from a corporate Google Drive instance into a personal drive location or another storage location like maybe Mega or Mediafire, you can actually provide redirections back to the corporate Google Drive instance or the corporate share file instance. There's several examples or ways in which you can apply these granular controls. There's a lot of exciting stuff, and again, these are all included at the standard tier of the Secure Internet Access product. Where we jump up into the advanced tier, we add malware protection and sandboxing. These kind of go hand in hand. In that malware protection is used to identify and block both known and unknown malware threats. What we mean by known and unknown, so for known, we're talking about the indicators of compromise, known code sources, and known websites that have previously been bad actors and installed malicious code in the past, but also looking at unknown malware. So the idea that behavior analytics are being gathered on the user's data consumption, the user's application access, and overall application performance. So we know exactly how and what they're doing on their applications, but we're also able to build trend data based on that information to see if suddenly a user starts consuming 1,000 times the data that they would normally consume in a regular work session. There's probably something unintentional or different at least going on that could raise a security concern. So we can flag that. You can automatically apply quarantine or sandboxing behavior. So putting them in an isolated environment separate from the corporate network that keeps their application access secure, but also gives them the ability to execute in an isolated environment that potentially malicious code so that the IT team and the end user can further experiment and explore what's actually going on with that potentially new code in the environment. Again, malware protection and sandboxing is that jump up to the advanced tier. And so the last piece where we would jump up to the premium tier is around the data loss prevention capabilities. You can think of this sort of like content scrubbing, the idea that there could be sensitive information like personally identifiable information, a credit card number, a social security number. Other sensitive data formats, of course, can be configured if you have a specific one for your organization or your use case. You're able to configure that as well. But basically the idea is that you can either drop entire packets that contain this sensitive data or information, or you can just scrub the sensitive information from any outgoing packets so that data is not able to be exfiltrated from your environments. Again, this is how the standard and advanced and premium tiers break down, but I will have a full breakdown of the features and functionalities in kind of a matrix format later on in the slides. So I mentioned the points of presence earlier. Let's take a quick look at some of the points of presence around the globe. You can see there's, at this point, sort of too many to fit on a single map with labels. So we've labeled some of the critical ones, but as you can see, great coverage in North America, Europe, as well as APJ and the rest of the globe. So no matter where your users are, especially if they're mobile users in the sense that they're consistently moving around either a continent or the entire globe, you're able to get local access to a point of presence that will give you high performance for your use case. So better user experience on that end, but also consistent enforcement in that you don't have to deploy different solutions at different regions of the globe. This can all be centrally managed. Let's talk about some of the technical differentiators. I won't go too in depth on the technical stuff today, but at a high level, I think it's important to point out some of the differences between the way we deploy our solution and some of the other vendors that play in this space. One of the keys in terms of performance and user experience is around the gateway deployment structure. So the idea for many of our other vendors that are competing with us in this space is that they're sending different customers to the same gateway location. The problem with this primarily is that the performance impact from customer A has the potential to impact customer B in the sense that if customer A sends a significant amount of traffic or data through that gateway, there will be some resource constraints around that gateway affecting customer B. This obviously is not ideal for user experience and therefore went against kind of the ethics that Citrix employed when developing and implementing this product. And so we've actually gone with the opposite approach of having separate gateways for each individual customer so that customer A has a set of gateways that does not overlap with any other customers, and customer B's performance could never be impacted by the data usage or consumption of customer A. This also has strong benefits on the compliance from a regulation standpoint in the sense that at every point in the process, all of a customer's data is kept completely separate from other customers' data being fed into Citrix Cloud. So at no point does customer A and customer B have overlap between where their data is going, the gateways that their data is traveling through, or the storage locations for their data. So that's kind of a preview of the benefits of having separate gateways. So enabling that global data privacy requirement, as well as eliminating the performance impact of those other secure internet access customers. We also are able to provide IP address persistence. So for several other customers, we do have the requirement of preserving their IP address so that corporate users can be mapped back to their organization, regardless of which network, or if they're working from home, or if they're working from the office, or a coffee shop in between. They're still able to be mapped from a security perspective to their organization. If we talk about the deployment capabilities and kind of the options around how to deploy the end user devices, you have a couple of options at a high level. You could either install a Cloud Connector agent on the end user device, and the operating systems supported include iOS, macOS, Chromium devices, Android devices, Windows 10, and Linux-based devices. So the agent is probably the leading recommendation here in that it does do a lot of configuration for you on the end user front. So it's not a bunch of manual steps to get it installed and configured. Organization membership is easy to define, as well as the installation of new certificates for that man-in-the-middle decryption of the SSL traffic. With 95% of the web traffic today being encrypted, having those certificates installed is a huge step in the process, and the Cloud Connector agent makes that very simple and very easy. The alternative for devices that maybe are unmanaged or cannot have an agent installed on them, like the Internet of Things devices such as printers, or there's several now, I won't get into that, but basically the idea is that with a proxy pack file, you can configure a proxy to send or scrub the traffic through the Secure Internet Access service, all without having the agent locally installed on that device. So you do have options there. You can also integrate this with our Citrix SD-WAN solution, so you can configure separate tunnels for including or excluding traffic from going through the scrubbing service, as well as traffic can avoid being backhauled through the main data center if you want to access a Azure or AWS point of presence more directly from a branch or home office location. And so the last piece on the technical side, we'll talk about the unified management. This keeps things simple in that if you already have a Citrix Cloud entitlement of the Citrix Workspace, Citrix SD-WAN, or Secure Workspace Access, you're able to easily integrate this product with your existing Citrix footprint. So for orchestrator capabilities, identity management capabilities, as well as the further analytics for security and performance that we offer in the cloud, you're able to consolidate your different maybe point products or products that would come from a multitude of different vendors traditionally into a single cloud hosted console. So you're eliminating those silos within your IT organizations, whether that's around your network and security teams or your troubleshooting and support teams as well. You can accelerate your operations between those teams by integrating with your single sign-on solution, as well as automating the connectivity between various branch locations or home office locations. And by consolidating those vendors, you're going to a single source for all your information, as well as a single source of troubleshooting and information around your end user access and application performance, as well as the security controls that are applied to them. So tying back into the ecosystem around the product and the integrations that we've already tested and validated with our customers, one of the ones that's key to point out is the threat intelligence from 10 plus engines. I won't go into every single vendor that we're pulling in information from, but you can see some examples down in the bottom left of this slide. So some familiar names like Bitdefender and Webroot are providing us access to their indicators of compromise. Those are providing real-time updates into the Citrix Cloud console so that any new threats identified by one of their individual customers is able to be fed back into our larger database of indicators of compromise for our user base. We also have integrations with Splunk, and less popular now is SolarWinds because of recent events. But around the Splunk front, I think that's one that's critical for many organizations that already have a Splunk deployment and they want to utilize their existing deployment and familiarity with that solution to leverage the data and information that's being gathered and managed by Secure Internet Access. This, of course, builds on Citrix's cloud agnostic approach in that we partner with Microsoft and Amazon on several fronts, as well as Google Cloud more recently. But we're not restricted to or limited by hybrid cloud or multi-cloud deployments, where we have users and customers that are still somewhat on-prem or mostly on-prem. We're able to share the on-prem deployment with a cloud-hosted deployment. And so you get the benefits for both your on-prem as well as your cloud-facing users. We have, of course, familiarity with the suite of Office 365 applications, and our traditional history of optimizing and enforcing security for those applications has lent us success with thousands of other SaaS and web applications that many of us use today. So whether that's WebEx for these types of meetings, Salesforce for managing sales contacts and information, or HR applications like Workday, Citrix is able to deliver the same security controls across the board. So with that, I kind of want to wrap up with some security differentiators just to kind of highlight where we stand out from the field. With the comprehensive security approach, we're able to check all of the boxes for the core and recommended capabilities from a unified management console. We deliver high performance and lower latency with our single pass architecture, and impacting the user session minimally to enforce this security control. We have global presence, so with the 100 points of presence that I mentioned earlier and kind of showed on the map, every user can be close to the SIA service point of presence and receive high application performance. We have better scalability because it is centrally managed and cloud hosted with our private instances for each customer, and that also includes private gateways as well. Deep and easy search forensics with the integration of our analytics platform for better troubleshooting, detailed visibility, and AI machine learning powered reporting. And then finally, our SD-WAN solution was awarded #1 in application experience and optimization in the past year. And by integrating the SD-WAN solution with our secure internet access platform, you're able to deliver that best in-class user experience.
Really appreciate you thorough and detailed presentation. It's great. Again, for the audience, I appreciate you being on, appreciate your attention. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us. You can email me at smerchant@accudatasystems.com. Christian, what's your email?
Christian.watson@citrix.com.
Perfect. Thanks a lot, guys. Have an amazing day.
Yep. Thanks, everyone.